Hi everyone, welcome to Conceive with Eden with me MKN. Today let's speak about the surrogacy contract and what goes into the surrogacy contract. So in my experience and speaking to a lot of surrogates, going through a lot of fertility centers, I realized that yes, something is given to surrogates for them to sign. It's usually a one pager. So you go and you see a one-page document is given to the surrogates for them to sign, saying that is the surrogacy contract. To be clear, don't sign any one-pager contract. It is not a valid contract. It couldn't possibly have everything that is required to be in the surrogacy contract. So if it's a one-pager document or two-pager, don't sign it. For the avoidance of any doubts, take the contract. Go talk to a lawyer about it. See if it's okay for you to sign before you go ahead and sign it. This is a typical example of a surrogacy contract that we have at Conceive with Eden. You see how bulky it is. This is a 34-pager contract for surrogacy. So don't go signing any one-pager document calling it a contract for surrogacy. But this video is to discuss what should be in your contract. So even if it's a one-pager document you have in front of you, you can look at it and check whether the document has all the things that we expect to be in the surrogacy contracts. So let's go ahead. Now, the first thing is that the contract should spell out the parties. It's important for you to know, or for us who are lawyers as well, to know who the parties are to the contract. It's a contract. It means that it's an agreement between party A and party B. So who are they? For the purpose of education, the surrogacy contract is the document that spells out all the terms and conditions surrounding the surrogacy arrangement. And so everything that goes in that arrangement must be spelled out in the surrogacy contract. So we need to know who the parties are. Who are they? Where are they from? We understand the need for confidentiality, and so you realize that some of the contracts, depending on who is signing, it will not have the details of the other party. But if a lawyer is the one that is drafting this contract for you, we know what we do. So the contracts, when it is done, would have the parties on there. So we need to know who the parties are. So their names, their address, and any other description that is best to use to describe them. We need those details in there. Then we need the specifics of the surrogacy arrangement. So for instance, is it going to be a gestational surrogacy? It's important for you to say. Preferably it should be a gestational surrogacy, but you need to tell us what kind of surrogacy you're contracting for. If the egg is going to be donor egg, it needs to be stated. If the sperm is going to be donor sperm, it needs to be stated. These are important things. The fertility center you're using for the surrogacy procedure needs to be stated. You need to mention the conditions preceding the gestation period. So for instance, that the surrogate is aware that she's going to undergo certain medical examination, after which there's going to be the IVF. The IVF is going to be done if she passes. It's important for you to mention that. Then what happens after the fertilization? How many eggs in the first place are going to be inserted? You need to state that. What happens after the eggs are inserted? If they split, what happens? You need to mention that. Compensation and expenses. Who is bearing the compensation costs and expenses? The intended parents, what are they specifically paying for? All those terms need to be included. If there's going to be expense reimbursement, it has to go in there. If you're expecting that a surrogate will make some expenses by herself and that she's going to provide documentation for it for reimbursement, that needs to be stated. If under no circumstance she has to bear any expense herself and it has to be done through an agency, that needs to be specified. So the name of the agency who is going to handle this also needs to be in the surrogacy contract. Then what is going to happen to pregnancy care? Is the surrogate going to be housed? How is the accommodation arrangement going to be? Who is providing her everyday needs? What is she allowed to do while she's being catered for? What is she not allowed to do? All those conditions must be included in the surrogacy contract. Prenatal care, what hospital is going to be doing her prenatal care? That has to be included. Most likely is the facility centers, but just to be sure, you need to put that in there. Who is going to pay for it has to be in there. Is it going to be a reimbursement after cost has been catered for? All those terms must be catered for. And then birth plan, what is that going to be? Usually birth plan is discussed with the fertility centers before it's included in the surrogacy contract, and so you need to know what the birth plan is likely to be. If that decision hasn't been made yet, it is advisable to put in clauses that would determine the risk of the birth plan, or what the birth plan is likely to be at the end of the gestational period. Then there's the newborn care, provisions for newborn care. What is going to happen? Are the intended parents going to have their child immediately, which is what we recommend? That should be in there. Postnatal care for the surrogates, that should also be included. Expenses for postnatal care should be in there. For us especially, we find that a lot of the time surrogates in certain agencies and fertility centers, they are asked to breastfeed. We don't recommend that. There's nothing wrong with providing breast milk, but that is something that the surrogate has to agree to do, and then arrangements can be made for expressing the breast milk, the refrigerating it, and then transferring the breast milk. But we do not recommend breastfeeding directly, because we are trying to do the detachment immediately at birth. So we don't do that. So arrangements for this should also be made and included in the surrogacy contract. We do not want situations where the surrogate has the baby and now she's left with the baby. Then she's compelled to care for the baby. It is not done. It shouldn't be done. This has to go into the surrogacy contract. You see why your surrogacy contract cannot be one-page document. It has to go in there. What happens upon the demise of the intended parent, it needs to go in there, because under no circumstance should the surrogates be burdened with care or parental rights of the child when she did not bargain for parental rights or parental care. No. So all those things need to be there. And then we have to look at instances where if the intended parents changes their minds, what happens to the baby? Because again, the surrogate has not bargained to be left with the care of the baby. Whilst you guys are still thinking about what to do with the baby, then she has to be burdened with the care of the child. No, it shouldn't happen. So those conditions need to be included. If there is divorce between the parties, what happens to the child? If the child is still within the gestational period, what is going to happen? And things like that. Issues with regards to the birth certificate of the child, even clauses specifically with regards to parental intent. It's important for you to have it in your surrogacy contract. That is to say that at all material times, the intended parents are the ones that have intended to be the parents of the child and not the surrogates. It's important for you to state that. Now, why am I saying that all these things should be part of the surrogacy contract? Presently, the laws we have in Ghana regarding surrogacy are not much. We only have the amendments to the Birth and Death Act that recognizes birth through surrogacy. And so when you're doing this arrangement, you need to be sure that every possible thing you can think of with regards to legal or ethical liabilities are included in this contract, so that each scenario is catered for. We don't have the laws that will cater for it. And so we need to provide that so that everybody is clear about what happens in every stage, what happens in each situation. They know what their responsibilities are. Everybody knows what roles they play. If it's the intended parents, they know what they are doing, what their duties are. They know where to come in and where to hold back. With the surrogate, they know what is expected of them. They know the risks that is involved. They have agreed to the conditions that they have to go through to make this surrogacy process a success. With the fertility centers, so they know what is expected of them. With the agencies, they also know the role that they have to play. Everybody's clear. As much as we can, we have to think about all the possible things that may or may not arise that might bring up any legal or ethical issues. And you have to put them in the surrogacy contract, so that you don't find a situation where the child or children who would result from this contract would come and then there's nobody providing care for them. We do not want that situation, or that someone who hasn't bargained to be a parent is now burdened with being a parent. So you need your surrogacy contract to have all those details. Compensation for restitution for the surrogacy needs to be in the contract. It shouldn't be assumed. If you are carrying a singleton pregnancy, what that restitution compensation looks like must be stated. If it is not a singleton pregnancy and it's twins or multiples, what that looks like needs to be stated. It is not that tomorrow the pregnancy were inseminated with 2 embryos and then somewhere along the line the embryos split and they become 4, and one person is now assuming, no, I said I'll pay you X amount of money, I'm sticking to the X amount of money, and the other person is thinking, no, but the babies are more now. What do I do? Do I take the money? Do I go and have an abortion? You don't want the situation where you're putting the parties in this position, because trust me, surrogates will abort the baby if care is not taken. So as intended parents, you don't want to leave that to chance as well. If you only want 2 children, you need to discuss with the medical facility what happens in the event of more than 2 embryos or more than 2 fetuses in the gestational period. What happens to them? If you're open to having more, so you need to speak about or agree on what the terms are. The more the numbers of babies in that pregnancy go, the terms need to change, because the more the babies, the more the pregnancy is at risk, the more stress it is on the surrogate, the more the pain and inconvenience she's going to go through. Some have to be on bed rest for probably the entire period because it's a multiple pregnancy, and so the conditions need to change. So all those things have to go in the surrogacy contract. One last thing, it is important that both parties seek their own legal advice, and so don't be pressured to sign any document. Don't say because of the money you are in a hurry to go and sign any documents. Don't also look at that I need this fast, I need this to be done, so you're not going to go through it and then you sign any documents. At Conceive with Eden, if you need a lawyer, we give you. It's a one-stop shop. So we have lawyers here to advise you. We have social workers here to speak to you if you need any. We have psychological support as well. And so if you need the legal advice, by all means have your own legal advice. Legal person look at the documents, advise you. If you have any questions, let us know. If you want to speak to a lawyer, we give you a lawyer. We always make sure there's a lawyer present when you're signing your document anyway. So regardless of that, you still get a lawyer present. If you have any questions, you can ask. There's a lawyer who would talk to you about whatever your liabilities are in there, but you can get your own independent legal advice for it. So this is basically what we have on what goes into the surrogacy contracts. I hope you've learned something. If you have questions, do let us know. If there's anything that you want us to explain, let us know and we'll do that in another video for you. But if you go out there to sign a contract for surrogacy, please, and please again, do not sign one-pager documents as contracts for surrogacy, because they could not possibly have all the essential elements that you require to be in your surrogacy contract. Thank you. See you in the next video.